Hey everyone, Livy here, back with another video, and today I am finally doing my July monthly musings. So basically, I'm going to talk about everything that kind of went down for me in the month of July, because let me tell you, it was actually a pretty epic month. Like, I have a whole list of things I realized I did during the month, and it's kind of ridiculous, actually, all the things I got up to. So I'm going to mention I have a lot to mention. As usual, I'm going to start with life events first, then I'm going to go into books I read, and then finally tarot related stuff. So you can skip around as you like, or just watch all of it. Thanks. Whatever you want to do. But let's start with the life events, okay? What happened to me during the month of July? First off, the month of July was kind of epic, I realized. There was a lot of things I just did. I guess it's because I just wanted to make the most of the fact that, there's a huge chunk of the month that I was still on vacation from work. And I wanted to make the most of it, even if it wasn't like incredibly big or whatever. I still managed to do some fun things. So kind of let me try to get into them. I literally have like a whole list. Okay. I have a whole list. First off, July 4th. Okay. In America, unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but it's just like complicated. In the month of July, we have July 4th, and that's basically America's Independence Day. I have very complicated feelings on July 4th. Like, I understand for some people it's a very patriotic time. For me, I don't care as much, but I did get to spend time with friends for July 4th. So one of my friends was having a barbecue, basically invited a bunch of people over. I got to go. I got to catch up with a lot of my friends that I haven't seen in a long time. We just hung out, ate good food, played some games, and I even read I read with tarot, right? I read tarot cards for my friends. They know I read, so they were just appreciative. I'll talk a little bit more about that, though, when I get to the deck I used for that, so that's all for that. I will say too, I did a lot of in July, I did a lot of random day trips places because my husband Daryl, he was also on temporary vacation for a little bit. So he got to go on these with me too, so that was also cool. Like a lot of day trips around California. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. So a lot of these day trips were to really nice places around the bay, like Half Moon Bay, San Francisco itself, Tiburon, Berkeley, Menlo Park, which is, yes, Menlo Park is where Facebook started up. I know. You actually go there, though. It's really funny. If you ever go to Menlo Park, it doesn't look techy at all. It looks like the whole downtown area looks like it's trapped in the early 90s. I don't know how else to explain that. It just has that aesthetic. I didn't take any photos of that, though, because their downtown's not crazy hip and happening, but they have some good places to eat, and they have a really great bookstore there. That's just a random fact. And then, were there any other big day trips? I don't think there were. I will try to include, in this random segment, I will try to include some photos, if I remember, of these day trips. I don't have it for all the places, but I do have it for some of them. I have nice photos from those times, especially the day I believe I went to San Francisco and the day I went to Tiburon. Well, I might even have some Berkeley. I don't remember. But yeah, I went on a lot of nice day trips. Hung out, was just enjoying my time, going to nice new coffee places. Most of it was go to coffee and have a nice lunch kind of dig for some of these. But it was just a good time for me. So yeah, I had some good times. What else though? What else happened in July? Well, first off, I do feel like I had an interesting combination of I was doing more home cooking, but I also took advantage once of there's this nice restaurant near where I live, and they had a really interesting happy hour menu, so we got to try that too. So again, it's like more like going out, having fun, trying new coffee places, but also doing home cooking a lot more during July. So that was just a cool little thing. What else happened in the month of July? Oh yeah, it was my birthday. I did a video haul of things I had got for that. So I'm not gonna repeat any of those, okay? I'm not gonna repeat any of those things. But it was my birthday. What sucked about that though is that my birthday was literally the week that I had to go back to work. So that was annoying. Like the actual day of my birthday, I invited my parents, my sister over, and we just had like sushi and cake basically, but that was like it. You know, there wasn't any like, oh, I'm going to go out and do these great things. It was not like that at all. I didn't have the time. That's why the day after, the next day I went to Berkeley. So, right, it was like on the weekend I was actually able to go because my birthday was on a Friday this year. But yeah, so it's Leo season now. That's cool. I guess. But, oh, with that said, actually, I will share some of the funny things or interesting things I got for my birthday that I did not buy for myself, okay? Other people, well, two of them I technically bought for myself, but they came after my birthday, which was weird because I originally bought them trying to do that haul video and it didn't pan out. So I'll share those two first and then the other ones. Oops, wrong thing. There we go. Sorry. Technical difficulties here. Okay. For my birthday, I was also going to include this in my birthday haul video, but I did not. This little notebook here, and these washi tapes are actually from, oh, and this is a watercolor. I don't think you guys can tell on camera, but this is a watercolor little mini sketchbook thing. This is by the same creator of the Anima Mundi Tarot. So her, why am I blanking on it? Her Etsy is popping off. So she has a lot of stuff with that. So yeah, this was for me, but I could not include it in my haul video. The other things I got for my birthday though were not from me. First off, my husband is the funniest. He got me this birthday card. Holy Sith, it's your birthday. There is stuff written in here, but it's from him, so I'm not gonna like share that. That's a little too personal, but he got me this really hilarious birthday card, so I liked it a lot. He also this is so funny to me. He also got me this little, it's just like a little joke gift. But it says stuff every coffee lover should know. And I'm excited to eventually like dive into this, but it basically gives you everything you should know, right? There's stuff about coffee basics, brewing methods, and like what these tools are, coffee traditions around the world, which I'm most excited to explore, how to serve it, and then resources. So this is just a cute little book. But I'm obsessed, and I guess that's the author. Candace Rose Raridan. I don't know. Oh, Quirk Books. Okay, I was like, I don't know who published this. It was Quirk. So, and it's about $10.99 USD. Yeah, USD, and then in Canada it's $14.99. So if you want a copy of this, that's I guess where you get that. But it's just a cute little book, and I'm excited to dive into that. But that was for my husband. Interestingly, I did not expect to get a gift. Me and my sister have an interesting relationship, but I did not expect to get a gift from her. And yet, when my sister and my parents recently got to go back to, I guess, the Azores, and I guess Portugal, I'm pretty sure she bought this book in Portugal itself. But my sister got to go again. And when she did, She got a book. I'm very excited about this one. This is Sweet Portugal. So this is basically a book about how to cook a lot of Portuguese desserts. And as you can see, pastéis de nata, our dish, the one that people most know, is in this. But there's a lot of like interesting cakes and other things. Oh, I had a little... Oh, this is for my sister. I'm not going to show that, but cute little poster or post-it. But it has a lot of like cool different desserts and stuff. Oh, sorry. Season. Okay. But I'm excited about this one because I do kind of want to learn how to make these as well as some of the other cakes and things. So I thought this was a cool one. It has a little British flag though. I don't know. I don't know if it's just because she had to get this in English when she was in Portugal because it's written in English. So that's really interesting. I don't know how she got a hold of this, but really excited for this. So those were some birthday things. I'm like sharing that now. I love how I'm doing that now before I get into actually talking about books. So give me 1 second and I will be back ready to talk about books. Okay, back. I know this is awkward, but let me explain this, okay? This book that I just printed the cover of, just so you know what the hell I read, was There Will Come a Darkness by Katie Rosepool. This is the first book I read in July, okay? I actually got this book from the library, so I had to give it back to the library, right? I don't have the book. Physical book, so this is this. it's just a paper. But let me talk about this one, okay? First off, this is a YA fantasy, but it's set in a fantasy world that is actually, I guess the best way to describe this is it takes place in a fantasy world that's like ancient, like if you combine like ancient Greece and ancient Egypt maybe, and like maybe ancient Persia. I don't know. It's like a weird combination of like that kind of setting. But this book takes place in that. And it's about like these characters, like literally that you see up here in red. They are the main POV characters. So this is a multi-POV book. And how this world works is there was this big religion that everyone followed, and they revered these people called the prophets. But one day the prophets go missing, and everyone's been afraid of like, oh no, where did they go? And what was the last prophecy that they said? Well, the Secret Order did know them. I think, I don't remember what they were called in the book. The Order of something with light was in the name. I don't know. But they knew the prophecy, and basically they are afraid that the age of darkness is coming. And so these characters that are here are basically, one of them is actually the last prophet. The others are just people who happen to have magical abilities that are also being persecuted kind of because this new order is rising up that hates people who have magic. So it has a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of like religion, politics, and like world building of that. It's also multi-POV. This was a really actually interesting book to me personally. I rated it 4 stars, and I do have to, I am going to explain a little bit of the good, the bad, and like overall, okay? Overall, I liked this first installment. So this does have like, I think 2 other books in it, okay? I thought most of the characters were fleshed out. And I did think that the world and characters were one of the strongest parts of this book, okay? Because if you have multi-POV situation anyways, you need to have strong characters. And it is an interesting concept, right? But some of my critiques with this is that even though the religion was a big part of the world, I feel like there were a lot of gaps in it still that I wanted more details about. And I also thought, see, this is also what's hard when you do a multi-POV story. So 5 characters, right, had points of view. And one of them, Hassan, I felt like his POV was the least developed. So that was like why I kind of gave it a 4 and not really like a 4.5 or 5, was because like I felt like his storyline just needed a little more work and a little more depth, especially because, to spoil a little bit, like his character was that he was a prince who literally had to run away from home because his parents and his city were like overtaken by that order who wants to get rid of all magical folk, right? And so we start the story where he's already like had run away. Okay, he already ran away. He was already in the city, and you don't really get any depth there of like how he had to get out and then what does he really feel. And it's like, I don't know. I just felt like it could have done more. So that's There Will Come a Darkness. I do eventually want to read the other books. I just will probably check them out from the library. So I will see how that goes. But that was that one. But also in July, this will be very interesting for some people. So I, until now, have never read Percy Jackson books, okay? That is hilarious because when the books were coming out, I was the target demographic. I was literally the target demographic. Did not read them when I was in middle school. And I think part of that was, okay, I do have a story. I am going to show the first book, but I do have a story. The reason why I never read these, okay, was at the time when I was like 16 years old, and I had seen the book around. I was like, oh, maybe I'll read it. Okay. 16 years old. I was on a writing website. I had posted my story. People were reading it. It was Greek mythology based. And everybody who commented on my on my book, like reviewing it, was like, I love this. This is just like Percy Jackson. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Why are you comparing my book to Percy Jackson? You know, I was so mad. I hadn't read these. And so I was just like so annoyed. I thought they were telling me I was plagiarizing. Turns out, you know, like when I look back on that, it wasn't that that I was plagiarizing, because when I read this is like nothing compared to like the book I was reading or wrote at the time. It was more for like, it's just Greek mythology based and also took place in our world. So people were making that comparison, and I guess for the humor, I don't know. So it was just different. But anyways, not important. Percy Jackson's important. This series, okay? So in the month of July, I read the first 3 books, okay? And I'm going to say that because, oops, sorry. Give me one second. Okay, sorry, back. In the month of July, I read the first 3 Percy Jackson books, okay? I did not expect I have very mixed thoughts on this. Now that I've read them. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Daryl, my husband, also bought me the last 2 because I was starting to read these. And then he was like, oh, well, if you really like them, then I'll buy the last 2 for you. I actually started, technically it was the end of July, going into August now, that I started. I'm like halfway through the 4th one. But because I'm not done, I'll just wait until August to talk about this one. So this video is just about the first 3 Percy Jackson books, okay? And this is a series that, yes, it's Greek and mythology inspired. Percy Jackson's the main character. And I feel like everyone's read these, but maybe if you haven't, I'll just explain. These are middle grade fantasies that take place in our world, but basically the Greek gods have been living for thousands of years, and our main character here, Percy Jackson, is what they call a half-blood. That means he is a demigod. He is the son of Poseidon and a mortal mom, okay? And this whole book series is basically about his adventures with the other half-bloods that he meets, specifically like Annabeth Chase, who is a daughter of Athena, which I know, if you're a Greek mythology fan, I know that is annoying as fuck, okay? I'm sorry, that's the one gripe I have about this, is why, I understand, like, why, okay? Rick Riordan probably wanted, like, a daughter of Athena, because Athena is awesome, but realistically, would it make sense for Athena to have half-blood children? No. Okay? No. That's my one gripe about the series is like, I feel like it was just making a stretch there. But anyways, Annabeth Chase is one of the other big characters. Grover, who is a satyr, is also a big character. And they basically just go on adventures and go on quests. And they're trying to make things good for half-bloods because, unfortunately, monsters from the Greek world are constantly trying to fuck shit up. So that's basically what the series is about, I feel like. And it takes place in our world, like I said. But for some reason, it takes place in America, and they explain this away of being like, oh, well, this is the seat of Western society. It moves with Western society. And it's like, bro, what are you talking about? This is Greek in origin. But okay, I don't know. There's some things about this series that I think were stretches. And as someone who is a Greek mythology, like, nerd, that does bother me about these. But I will talk about my thoughts a little bit on these individually. So first off, this one, The Lightning Thief, is the first book. I gave this one a 4-star rating, okay? It does... Okay, some things I did like about this is that it does make mythology fun for kids in particular. It does have interesting characters, and it seems at least that it thought the series out. Like, I do get a sense of what Riordan is trying to do with these books from this, okay? But some of the things that overall kind of annoys me about the series, but basically starts with The Lightning Thief, is that there's a lot of repetition of concepts. There's questionable lines of dialogue, mostly in this one. And there's also this weird thing where Percy is like, they say that every half-blood basically has ADHD and dyslexia. I feel like the ADHD is kind of a weird afterthought, though. It's like, why are you saying that he has ADHD? We see no signs of that in the book. I do see the dyslexia, though. There's a lot of times where he has to read things and he's like struggling a bit, and then it becomes clear because, you know, he has dyslexia. That makes more sense. The ADHD just seems like a weird ass afterthought, and I just don't know what the point of that was, including, again, because I've just seen better ADHD rep, I guess, in books. And then the whole thing with Athena, of course, bothered me. And so this is why I couldn't really give it a higher rating than a 4, because I was getting into this world and trying to understand it. But there were just some things that as someone, again, who is like a Greek mythological fan, did write my own book at one point that was like taking modern things, but still had the past stuff represented. I just didn't know if this was 100% successful. So I was like, I don't know, but it's like fun enough. I'm going to continue on. Okay. Book 2 so far, The Sea of Monsters, is probably my favorite in the series so far. This one I had to check my notes here. This one I actually did give a 4.5 star. Okay. I think the reason why is because the characters got better developed in this one. Percy also gets a half brother named Tyson, who is a Cyclops. And I just loved their interactions. I thought they were very precious. And the plot of this one at least made some more sense to me for some reason. I don't know why, but this one made the most sense. Some of the things with this book, though, that I thought could have been better was there's a side character, Clarice, who is like a daughter of Ares. I thought she was in here a little bit, but I think there was room to like explore her character a little bit more. Grover was also a side thing. I mean, you get little bits of him, but like he wasn't a bigger part of this book, so I was like, eh. And the other thing I've noticed with the series, it starts in this one, goes into this one, even goes into this one, is that all these like gods and other people like give them gifts, right? They give them like items and things that would theoretically help them out on their journey. But then those gifts immediately like get destroyed or they lose them or some stupid ass shit happens. And I was like, what is the point of even mentioning that you brought this here, bro? What is the point of that? I don't know. But that was a thing. And then we're going to go into the third book in this series because, oh my God, I need to mention this one because so far, Book 3, okay? Book 3, The Titan's Curse. This one by far had to be my least favorite. This one I gave a 3.5 star read, okay? And the reason why, okay, there were some good things about this one, right? I did like how at least Artemis felt realistic. I liked her whole shtick, kind of, and her posse, the hunters. I also liked that this book at least had serious consequences. Like there were people who were dying, and it was like, oh shit, they're actually like dead. And then I will say like Percy got developed more as a character. But the reason why this was my least favorite one is because between the Sea of Monsters and this one, there is this huge ass time skip that happens and it doesn't make any fucking sense. I'm like, wait a second. What are you doing here? You did not explain how the fuck Talia comes into the picture. You don't really explain Talia and Percy's dynamic. This book just jumps into like, it's literally like 6 months later or some bullshit like that. And you get the sense that Talia and Percy are having a hard time liking each other, but you don't see anything in between. So you don't know how the fuck that got, they got to that point. So I was like, what the shit is happening here? And then there's these two characters that are introduced in this one, Nico and Bianca D'Angelo. Spoilers, because again, this series has been around a while, okay? If you haven't read these, sorry, I'm going to spoil this, but you can look this up too, okay? Nico and Bianca end up being, sons and daughters of Hades, okay? And for that big of a fucking event, they barely get like screen time. Like Bianca gets a little bit more, but Nico is like done so dirty in this one. He is taking up more space in the 4th book, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. But they like barely got screen time, so that was like also again weird. And then this book also at the same time felt too fast in comparison to the other 2 books. Like this was just speeding shit along at like weird hyper speed, and I didn't understand why it needed to do that. And especially Talia. So Talia, right, is the daughter of Zeus, and there's a lot of things with her that I just found so fucking weird. Like, I feel like her character could have been done a lot better, and it just wasn't. So, for that reason, this was my least favorite one so far. I can say I am liking the 4th book more. But this one is definitely my least favorite. Sorry, not sorry. Especially if this one is for some reason your favorite. I don't know. I don't know who here has read these books, but this one was definitely my least favorite. And yeah, so I'm gonna stop talking about books and we're gonna now get into tarot. Okay, hey, yeah, this is tarot now. Let's talk about it. Okay. First off, my card of the month for the month of July was, as you can see, death. And, that's actually kind of interesting for me. I think it makes more sense now, but death didn't make sense to me at the start of the month. I didn't understand what could have happened to make that happen, right? Like July, like I said, went on an interesting course that I just couldn't imagine something as dramatic as death being the card, but I think it makes sense when I look at the concept of, I guess none of these cards show it, but these are the decks I use, by the way. I'm going to talk about them more later. That's why I pulled out their cards. Maybe even more this one can talk about it. Death, as we know, it does not mean literal death, okay? I understand that. I feel like for the month of July, it definitely was more of that rebirth aspect. I feel like July was necessary for me because I needed to really understand myself. I needed to understand and find myself in a better situation, and I needed to feel more at peace with myself and the world around me. I needed to just go out. I needed to explore. I needed to do things. I needed to write, which I did not mention earlier, but I did write a lot during the month of July, which was good. I just needed to do that. And I feel like that was a rebirth in a way. Like I kind of, especially after how crazy the beginning of my year was and the ending of last year was. I just felt like July was an interesting reset. And I think that's what these cards really signaled, you know. Death came and I could have a sense of relief and rediscovery. So this was actually beautiful. This was beautiful for my month of July. But let's talk about these decks that I use, because these are the cards from that. I just wanted to pull out the different ones so you guys could see them. First off, I guess we should start with the Oracle deck decks that I used for the month of July. I used, once again, my Citadel Oracle and my deck of emblems. This is a special edition of the Citadel. It comes with this extra deck, okay? And I used these in July because, as you saw from some of the, like a little bit of a peek of the other decks I was using in July, I mainly went back to my fantastical roots, especially like Dungeons and Dragons, you know, fairy tales, myths and things. And this is still my most like fantastical of those decks. So see, as you can tell, the special editions, as you can see, the Citadel has the red edging, the deck of emblems has the black, and they have different backs, even though they're still black and white. By the way, for those who are going to come at me, this is literally the only black and white deck I own, and it's not even fully black and white, as you can see here. It also has copper and red tones. So this is the most I go. I can't do more than that. You guys already know that. But anyways, oh, these were the last two cards I got, by the way. This is literally, I got these cards, and that day was basically like, choose violence. Choose violence. And it was so funny to me. I was like, what the hell? My Oracle cards are telling me to fight somebody. I couldn't believe. It was so funny to me. But these two, I feel like I used this more near the end of the month when I knew I was going back to work and I needed more of a boost from Oracle. I wanted to use these more and it just didn't happen. And I think part of that was because I was living my best life in July. I noticed this interesting thing with Oracle decks is that I usually go to them more when I need like an energy boost. It's more of like, hey, what's the energy I should be bringing in? Because I know based on my tarot cards, how my week is going to go, right? I don't usually, and it has like, yeah, as you can see, the coppery bits. It doesn't usually have any crazy or thing with that with me in Oracle. But as you can see, these obviously go together, and I do use these together. Sometimes I felt more like taking the deck of emblems, interestingly, places, only because it's more travel size. It is smaller. It has a minier box, and the Citadel is more bulky. But these are just both very beautiful decks. And I don't know. I was glad when I use them. I guess, was not in the headspace where I would have used them more, I guess. So that's that. It's the Citadel and the deck of emblems. Okay, going with the tabletop fantasy realm, like the Citadel and the deck of emblems, another deck I used during the month of July happened to be my Dungeons and Dragons Tarot. I don't know what it is about wanting this deck on my birthday month. I guess it's just fantasy. I like to indulge in fantasy and the things I love during my month, which I feel like is not the vibe for everyone in July. But anyways, not the point. As you can see, I have edged mine in this blackish color. I love it. Okay, this deck. I mainly, had it the wrong way. I mainly used this deck for one, reading for myself, and then funnily enough, I did not use it again for myself, but I did use the Dungeons and Dragons Tarot on the 4th of July. I read for my friends with this deck. I don't know if I mentioned this on this channel before. I used to be a DM, also known as a dungeon master, for D&D, and I was for my friends. And so those friends that I saw were my old players. And so for them, this is like a special thing, right? They saw this deck. They were like, whoa, D&D. Like they were excited. I haven't been a dungeon master in a long time, but some of them still play D&D together, which is good. Others don't as much, but that's also fine, right? Like life happens, you move on, or you have just like me, it's mainly a crazy work schedule that I don't really have time to be a dungeon master anymore. But yeah, this is always just like a nice read. It read really accurately for my friends though. They were like, oh shit. So I know this deck reads well. It is one of my favorite decks. I have done, if you guys don't already know, I have an in-depth like walkthrough of this deck where I talk about it and the Dungeons and Dragons themes in it. So I just really, 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 really love this deck. And it just means a lot to me. I don't know. It's sad that I didn't use it more for myself. I did think about doing other readings. It's just, again, I was living life, so it is what it is, but not to say I won't use this deck again, right? So, yeah, that is the Dungeons and Dragons Tarot. Okay, another deck that I used during the month of July happened to be this one. This is the Once Upon a Time Tarot. I will show it a little bit, but I will also be honest that I only use this deck once for one week ahead reading, okay? I wanted to use this deck more. It's not that I was like repulsed by this deck. It's just, again, I feel like my big overarching theme here is that I thought I was going to do a lot more tarot than I did, and I did do a lot of tarot. It's just the decks I use in what ways, it just didn't happen to be this one. So these are the backs. This is a mass market deck, by the way, from Low Scarabeo. I forgot to mention, too, the Dungeons and Dragons Tarot is mass market as well. But yeah, this is the Once Upon a Time Tarot. Very cute, as you can see. I like this deck. I do want to use this again. I don't know when, because it gives me more like summery vibes for some reason, which is why I was drawn to use this, I guess. But the colors in here are so beautiful and rich. I like that it's like fantasy, but it's done almost in like a cartoony way, but not in like a bad cartoony way. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like if this was a show, basically, like if this was an animated show, I would have been obsessed, you know. It has that kind of artwork. And the reading it gave me, though, was nice, I think. I remember that. And so this is definitely a deck I will need to explore more with. I just didn't really for July, just because my month ended up being so, like, busy. But it is beautiful. And yeah, this is a good one. So Once Upon a Time Tarot. Okay, the next deck I actually used during the month of July, if you can believe, was the Zodiac Tarot. Me and this deck, I feel like, have now gone on a very interesting journey together. You guys know, it's documented on here on my YouTube. When I first got this deck, I was actually kind of really pissed off because I bought this deck, right, this tin deck from US Games, hoping that I was going to get their typical tin deck cardstock. And unfortunately with this deck, as you can see by even shining it in the light, that is not what happened here. This deck is very glossy, like its original counterpart. I'll hold the deck a little closer because this is also smaller so you guys can see. So at first, it basically has that, like, almost feels like I'm touching a photograph glossy cardstock, which is not my favorite at all, okay? Not my favorite at all. And so I was mad. I almost did not want to use this deck. I almost wanted to rehome it immediately. But for some reason, I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to try. I'm going to try in July. And I decided to work with it. And oddly enough, somehow it worked for me. I'm still not a fan of this cardstock, but it's not as awful as some other decks I had recently with really bad cardstock. So, I don't know. This deck grew on me. I did not expect that. Did not expect that. This was my biggest disappointment of the year at first. but now it's kind of like redeemed itself. And I also used this deck when I was in the middle of, oh, what was it? Oh, that's another thing I forgot to mention maybe, unless I did, and I'm just like, my brain has shut out. I did some more in-person tarot meetups. And when I did, I used this deck for my minor arcana cups, day where I was talking about that with the people I meet up with. And so, yeah, they actually liked this deck too. They were like, oh, wow, it's interesting. And some of them were better with astrology. So they liked seeing the astrological symbols and all that jazz. So yeah, this deck grew on me. I do love the art still. So yeah, this was an interesting surprise. I did use it a couple times for a couple different readings, especially at that tarot meetup. And it worked really nicely, interestingly. So I'm kind of excited to use this again. I don't know when. Its darker backgrounds kind of give me vibes of like, I did see it in July, but I could easily see this deck coming out again at like a different time of the year, maybe November or something. I don't know, but we'll probably use this again soon or just use it as a nice travel deck, but I'll think about that. So yeah, Zodiac Tarot. This is also, again, I said US games, but this is also mass market. Okay, another deck that I used during the month of July happened to be this one. This is Asphodelon's Mythos Tarot. And this was actually hilarious to read in July. It's because I knew I was going to read Percy Jackson. I also happened to be using this deck at the same time. So that was actually kind of hilarious. These are the backs. This deck is based on Greek mythology. I'm just going to include like the other card in. And this was actually kind of funny to be, working with again in July when I was also reading the Percy Jackson books. So it's funny for me because some of these are actually, some of the concepts, because Percy Jackson did cover them, are a little bit fresher in my mind. I love this deck. What's funny is I only did one reading with this. I actually meant to do another reading with this for my birthday. And that didn't happen. I ended up using the Zodiac Tarot instead, but I do love this deck. I am tempted to work with this again in August. Jury is out if I'm actually going to cheat and do that. But I am very, 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 very tempted to, because this deck is beautiful. This is by far my favorite Greek mythology deck that I have seen. This one I feel like is the most accurate. Like when you think of like cards and like how many different myths and stuff are included, despite the fact that most of this deck is about Persephone. It is still the most accurate. Did have issues with Aphrodite, though, as the star, which, by the way, I think I've flubbed in that video. Yes, it's Aphrodite who is the star card. I thought that was a hilarious choice, to be honest. I don't know why. I just don't see Aphrodite in that way. That's my only, I guess, gripe with the deck. Otherwise, it's like fine. And it's actually beautiful. So I'm just looking at it again and I'm like, yes, why don't I use it again? So I might. Am I going to? I might. We'll see, guys. But this one is so good. I just having a good time. This is an indie deck, I will say. So be aware of that if you're trying to get a hold of this deck. It is indie. The creator's in the US though, so if you are in the US, you will probably have an easier time of getting a hold of it. Otherwise, shipping is like awful right now. Just be aware, but I do highly recommend this one, especially if you are a fan of Greek mythology. So this is the Mythos Tarot. Okay, everyone, this is the last deck I used during the month of July, and this happens to be my Tarot of the Divine. I love this deck. And oh my God, speaking of Percy Jackson again. Oh, this has a lot more meaning now to me. Holy shit, with Janus in this fourth book. I'm not going to spoil anything, but he comes up and boy, is he a dickhead. Sorry, that was just my random, okay. But anyways, Tarot of the Divine, you guys know, you should know I've had this one, right? Like, this is one of my oldest tarot decks. I don't know why I always have an urge, like literally I want to use this deck every March and every July, and I have no fucking clue every year why. But maybe it's, you know what's crazy? Those are actually both, they both have like fire and water, I think, meet. Oh, that is really interesting. I don't know how I made that comparison. But anyways, always want to use it during those months. I actually used this for one of my tarot meetups when I was doing a study session. I was actually reading some of the stories of this that come in that bigger Tarot of the Divine book. I'm not going to pull that out right now because I forget where the hell I left it, but it's somewhere in this apartment. I always love using this deck. I think the artwork is fantastic. I have read for others with this deck. I've read for myself with this deck. I use this, again, mainly for the study and mainly for like 1 week ahead spread reading. But that's okay because, again, I've used this deck so many times for so many other different things. I love Tarot of the Divine. This is always going to be kind of in my collection, I feel like, because it's just fantastic. The only gripe I have with this deck is that its cardstock is so it's so weird, and that everyone I've seen who's literally had this deck, you might see it, you might be able to tell. There's like a bow, and literally ever since first shuffle of this deck, it's had that bow and it's never really gone away. So like this deck bows easily for some reason. Again, it has to do with cardstock, but I simply love this one. So Tarot of the Divine, also use that for the month of July. But wow. That was long, but I hope you guys stuck around. I hope you enjoyed it. My life updates. It wasn't a disaster anymore. Hopefully that means August will be better, but I'm already, at the time of me filming this, it's literally the first week of August and I already want to scream and pull my hair out, so I don't know. We'll find out. But if you've watched it for this long, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time. Bye.